Hello, everyone. Your favorite comm major, Jim, is here. And I just wanted to talk to you about Anchor.fm. It is super easy to set up a podcast and get it out to all those amazing podcast platforms your friends use. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means you can get paid to podcast right away. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now by reading you this ad. And I'm also a member. So honestly, it's super easy, even for the comm majors. You know, we did not do enough work in college, but it's super easy to upload your episode, get it out there to all those services. So if you want to start a podcast, go to anchor.fm/start, and you can, check it out right there. That's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear your podcast.
Hello and welcome to Comm Majors. I'm Brian Costello.
I'm Jim DeSanto.
And I'm Alex Trebek.
Good work.
Oh, there, that works. Yeah. All right, today we are looking at the Sean Connery, Alec Baldwin film based on Tom Clancy's global bestseller, The Hunt for Red October, in October, celebrating its 30th birthday. But first, as always, we'll answer the most pressing question of every episode. What are we drinking this episode?
I'm drinking Four Roses, small batch select. It's excellent.
I made myself some hot cocoa because I was feeling sleepy.
Show the mug, though. The mug is pretty cool.
In Jim's Baymax.
Baymax mug.
Baymax mug.
Yes.
I always call him Bayomax. Just Bay. Baymax.
And he has levels, so like if you look inside him, it shows you his battery level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. So I've just made it past the frowny face to like almost ready to talk, and then I've got my two robbers on deck.
Oh,
We're
robbers.
down to like 14 robbers.
I thought you had 72 robbers last week.
I had a lot of robbers.
That is a lot of crime. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of crime going on.
I've been on detox for the past few days, though.
That is Philadelphia, right? Only bad things happen in Philadelphia.
I've had 3 dry days. I think that's my first 3 dry days since quarantine started.
Yeah. There's now a Gritty t-shirt. It's just Gritty's face, and it says bad things happen here.
I love it.
I am drinking Lost Sailor IPA in honor of our film from the Berkshire Brewing Company.
Berkshire Brewing.
Very
nice. Very nice.
All right, it's fact check time. Last week, we did a truly wonderful film.
Yep, we did a great movie.
Hell or High Water. I think one of our maybe favorite viewings of all time, perhaps.
I agree. It's yeah.
A few fact check things. We had mentioned this briefly. It was Oscar nominated, but we didn't go into all the Oscar nominations. It was nominated for 4 Oscars, including Best Picture, Best Supporting Actor for Jeff Bridges, Best Original Screenplay, and Best Film Editing. I feel like cinematography should have been nominated.
Yeah.
I feel like Ben Foster probably should have been nominated. And probably a lot of other like production design probably should have been nominated.
It was excellent.
I'm surprised because when I think about this movie, I can't get away from thinking about it as a Western. And when I think about it compared to something like Unforgiven, I think this is a better movie.
Oh, absolutely.
I think Unforgiven is a great movie, but I think this is something special.
We've talked before though about all of the things regarding the Oscars, but it's you can only compare it against the movies of its year, right?
Yeah, and but even compare it to something like what was No Country for Old Men. I think this is way better.
Agreed.
Way better.
Agreed.
So,
all right. And we were talking about, is it a heist? Is it a Western? It officially billed itself, I looked this up, as an American neo-Western heist crime film.
That's all of the things.
Yeah, they just picked them all. They just didn't
say,
is it in the MCU?
Yeah, throw it
That's
in there.
what they call a monster cookie.
Yeah, it's
which
a little
is
bit of
everything that you've
The
got.
kitchen sink.
Yeah.
Okay, we have breaking news.
Oh gosh.
Again, breaking news.
Sam the Eagle.
This is breaking news. Comm Majors has seen a 56% jump in reviews
We have 4
in
now.
the past month.
We
A
have
56% jump and a 33% jump in ratings.
Thank you, Patrick Morgan and Scott Mullen.
You know what that? You know what that?
just the two of
That
you.
was just for Ryan. 4.
4.
It's my Gene Hackman.
Yes. So
Hoosiers?
that
No.
Yeah, Hoosiers.
yes, Hoosiers. Very good.
4 passes.
Very good. So thank you, commentors.
Good job, commenters.
Yeah, thank you
we
very much.
are enjoying that. 'Cause
We,
that is
it
very
helps the
Major
show.
thanks
It
to you.
really helps us.
Major thanks.
Major thanks.
major thanks.
It helps us get the word out there, and hopefully we're going to show up on some really big people's radar very soon, and we'll be
happening.
we're no.
I mean, we
are
have
bringing
made.
in tens of dollars.
We're just gonna keep
Tens of
having
dollars.
fun and eventually stop having fun.
Yeah,
Let's
we have made over 2,000 cents.
okay.
On this
All
podcast.
right, moving
I
on.
love it.
Moving on.
We have more breaking
Oh, gosh.
news.
Major Dad. Major Dad. Scott Mullen.
Yeah.
Last week
name
we
is
had
Harold.
breaking news that Pale Reason was back
Yeah.
for a live show. This week's breaking news is that if you are unable, let's say, to enter the state without having to quarantine for 14 days after visiting, so you can't come to the show, you can now watch Pale Reason live on the 118 North Facebook live feed.
Yeah.
So,
And
October
for
23rd.
those that don't know, which might be all of the people, Pale Reason was Jim's first band, and now they're reunited, and it feels so good. I mean, just like every once in a while they get together.
That was 2 years ago.
Every
Yes.
2 years they play together one more time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like cicadas. They come out every
There's a cycle.
Yes.
Cyclical.
cycle to them.
I'm ready
Some
to go
people
back
get
underground
scared.
at this point. I'm ready
Some
to go
people
back.
turn into a shell of themselves.
I want to go back
Shell of
underground.
a former self.
The cicada killers
There's a
are
larva.
here.
There's an empty shell.
Listen, we're dealing with a lot of stuff. Lantern bugs,
Flies.
or whatever
I
those
can take
things
the
are.
insect metaphor pretty far.
All right, let's just do this.
Let's do it.
All
Here
right,
we go.
Here we go. Rundown time.
So I did a real rundown, and it feels super boring.
Yep.
So then after I did the real rundown, I just did like, what 15 words would I use to describe this movie? And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to do that instead. Plane, submarine, whale, submarine, America, Russia, helicopter, rafts, submarine, cigarette, explosion, ocean, river, brotherhood, fishing.
Pretty good. I know.
that. It's pretty good.
The only thing I'm questioning is whale. Was there a whale?
Oh, well, it was the beginning where they're learning how to use the sonar. It's
yeah.
the training to differentiate between
Yeah, you're right.
organic
They say
and
something
non-organic
about-
material. And so
Didn't
they're
they talk
listening to
about
the
whale
whales.
Sex?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're listening
there's
to the
like a
whale
whale
sounds.
sex-
I
sex
enjoyed that
joke.
part.
Okay. Fair enough.
All right, so Hunt for Red October. My selection, a film I had enjoyed 30 years ago, probably have not seen much. Big Tom Clancy fan of the old Tom Clancy stuff. So when I realized it was the 30th anniversary of being released, I thought now might be a good time to revisit it. And I was pleasantly surprised, to be honest with you. I had remembered enjoying it, and I thought it held up pretty well compared to some of the films that we have watched and then gone back and rewatched and that have not held up very well.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
We are lucky enough to be joined by a major fan of this movie, apparently, in Scott Mullen. He is quoting this movie left and right as we speak.
In the chat. Yep.
Yep. It holds up, he says, with 3 periods.
It's really funny because this movie, as I watched it, I realized that it is, like Katie said, if you were to describe the plot, it is not an action movie. This is really a drama. And I guess technically maybe a heist movie.
I was going to say that. Is this
a low-key heist?
Is this the biggest heist?
Very subversive
thing
heist
ever stolen in a film?
Yeah.
Turbulence.
A nuclear submarine.
I missed a good word. Sorry,
Turbulence,
Patrick Morgan. You're right. I should have had turbulence.
But like, it is not an exciting. If you were to think about movies, the plot is not very exciting. I think they get away with it here because they make even mundane things in this movie seem very tense, and they do a really good job of that. It is not an action movie, and that's great because I don't particularly like action movies. They're just around for action. I think the story here carries the movie, and it does keep you sort of intrigued. And they show you some, and I don't know how real this stuff is.
Yeah. Do we have any submarine operators?
No, but I will say that my Uncle Bob, who worked for the NSA, has always said that Tom Clancy is like one of the writers to truly sort of, embody like what that life is like. And so,
is Tom Clancy supposed to be the Jack Ryan character?
No, I don't think he was ever
like former military who started writing books.
He might have been former military, but
he was running an insurance corporation. Actually, when he wrote this.
Yeah, and so it's I love them showing like how they work with sonar and how the different things on the submarines sort of work and how those tactics are important and distinct. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
We have some dynamite drop-ins here that this movie would have been better only if Jack Burton had a cameo as the sub driver. Somebody break that down for me. Who's Jack Burton?
Oh God.
Oh! I know this. I know this from Big Trouble in Little China. Kurt Russell. Yes,
Mr. Burton.
That would have been awesome. I agree, Scott.
It would have been cool if David Lopan had his own submarine and was
my God.
Just the
please can we
around.
Remake this movie?
You know what's funny? Doesn't
crossover Big Trouble in
David
Little
Lopan play like a I think he plays like a Japanese general in something. The same actor.
He does. He plays. I think he also is in. He might be in another Sean Connery movie. Actually, I think he might be one of the bad guys in Rising Sun, the Michael Crichton one with Wesley. I'd have to double check that, but I think he was in that. Jim, kind of agree with you. And here's the interesting thing with Tom Clancy. I always find in my mind, even though the material is wildly different, Tom Clancy is kind of like Tolkien in the sense that I feel like an adaptation has to be done perfectly because to read their stuff, there's so much detail in it. Like Tom Clancy novels are not easily accessible to your average person.
Hot take on this. This movie and those novels are not written for women.
Right. And so
no, but they are.
Yeah.
And I know that I've said in the past, it doesn't really need to break down to gender. This does. Largely.
Yeah.
This movie's not for ladies.
It's very technical. Yes. And I would imagine the book is 100
even
times
more so.
technical.
Even more so.
Yeah.
I appreciated this movie. This is not a movie that I would rewatch.
Right.
It's not for me. It's not my cup of cocoa.
Yeah.
But I appreciate it. And Sean Connery's Silver Fox, though questionable morals. And
I will say though, and Pat Morgan in chat brought up Tim Curry. I think he's the worst part of this movie.
I agree.
His whole affect in this movie just doesn't.
He doesn't fit.
Weird.
He doesn't fit for me.
It doesn't feel legit.
He doesn't seem like a naval doctor.
No, everybody else on that ship feels believable.
Yeah,
except for him. Maybe that's funny, the thing. Maybe he's supposed to feel like he's supposed to feel to be the traitor. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's sort of what they were going for. Maybe throw like a red herring in there, but and I think it's just the baggage that Tim Curry carries with him as an actor. It's sort of hard to look at him and go, "That's not Tim Curry."
Right. You think Broadway.
Yeah, and I struggle with that with Sam
Rocky
Neill
Horror.
to some extent a little bit, even though he was very good. Yeah, Rocky Horror.
Yeah. Oh, I thought he was pretty.
Yeah,
I had the same problem with Sam Neill.
What's interesting to me, and I think that this is easily the best Clancy adaptation. To me personally, I think this is much better, and I liked Patriot Games, and I like.
Clear and Present Danger.
Clear and Present Danger is good.
Is that the Irish?
The Patriot Games is the Irish one, and then the other one's in Colombia, and then you have Sum of All Fears, which was updated, and Ben Affleck comes in.
Oh, I never saw that. And then you do
that really, really bad Chris Pine, Jack Ryan, which they tried to modernize, and then you have John Krasinski doing Jack Ryan on Amazon, which is again a very different one.
Yeah.
I think this most closely meets what a Tom Clancy novel is. And I think the casting was good for that because you think of it as a Jack Ryan movie, like they sell them as Jack Ryan novels, but Jack Ryan by and large is probably in no more than 30% of the novel itself. Right. It's not like one of those book characters where almost every scene involves him. Tom Clancy wrote all these different characters. You'd be bouncing all over the world. So I think the casting in terms of how they did it, I mean, Tim Curry was definitely, I think, not well cast, but everybody else from Scott Glenn is the sub-captain for the U.S.
Great.
Courtney Vance.
There are a lot of people in this.
But that's what I mean. And I think that's what you need to do. When Harrison Ford comes in and takes over the role in Patriot Games and in Clear and Present Danger, it really becomes a vehicle for Harrison Ford.
Yeah, it's indistinguishable. Was. Yeah, you don't even think about it as being like different than like Air Force One. He's not playing Jack Ryan. He's just doing his thing.
In essence, it's kind of funny because Jack Ryan becomes the president of the United States. And I was always like, is Air Force One, they could have just called it a Jack Ryan movie and made it Jack Ryan as president, and that would have been Air Force One. Same thing with Ben Affleck when he did Sum of All Fears. It was like a Ben Affleck vehicle. It wasn't about the stories as much as this one was. And there's obviously changes because Clancy wrote massively long books, just like Tolkien did. But the essence, I think, and the core of who the characters were and what the story were are what carry this movie. Because it's not, you would think it's an action movie, right? Somebody might sell it. You'd think, oh, it's a sub movie. You must have all this fighting and this action. And it's fairly minimal.
Yeah, it's really only the end. Just the end, the end action sequence. And I did stop folding laundry and checking my email during the scene with the torpedoes. That was tense.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are tense in this movie. And I was saying to Katie, like even something like when Jack Ryan gets flown out to the submarine and dropped on top, like in any other more modern movie, that would sort of not even be covered. But they show you why it's treacherous, which is there's crazy wind. The water is freezing cold if you're in that water for, what do you say, 4 minutes?
Yes, 4 minutes.
4 minutes, you'd be dead.
They had to fly light.
So they had barely enough gas to get back. Also, because of whatever they're dealing with, the static electricity is crazy, so they can't touch him with the pole, or, you see that giant shock, which is crazy to think about.
And also, he is a swinging...
from a moving vehicle.
Right. So like he is a weapon.
He's a wrecking ball.
Right, exactly. To the folks that are on the sub. Yeah, that was a great scene. That was an action scene.
Yeah, and if we think about that covered in any other movie, it's like they just drive by and jump out the plane and swim to the submarine. It's like, yes, that's not how shit works. And Tom Clancy does not skimp on that stuff. Yeah, he's not going to pretend like these guys aren't doing amazing things. And and show you those real things rather than like exaggerate other things, right? So like, I don't know, it's hard to describe, but I think anybody who watches this movie and doesn't feel excited at different parts is lying, because I think it is a super tense movie in certain parts. And again, it doesn't have over the top action. It's not that kind of movie. But it kind of, I think I'm more desensitized to like those over the top action movies, something like John Wick, where like, I'm like, oh, okay, this is not tense for me because there's no stakes. It's just kind of crazy. And then you see something like this, and the plot and the character development and sort of the intricacies of like what they're trying to do become so tense that you kind of are hanging on at each scene.
I also think in modern time, we probably wouldn't even have needed to push much more modern. I think this movie would have been of a lower quality, even if it was filmed 5 or 6 years later with advancements in CGI. And they would have tried to over rely on like a sub battle or showing us more of the sub from the exterior. They show just enough of it to sell you on what's happening in the sub, so that you don't need to see so much of the exterior of the sub. I thought they had the perfect balance of seeing that and the use of models and the way they did it.
Yeah, I think that's important too, because the characters don't see what's going on out there, right? So they're blind to what's going on in the water, you know, so they kind of keep you in that area and allow you to hear. They'll show you the torpedo and that it's coming, but they don't really give you a perspective of how close it is to the sub. They're just having someone in the sub saying like, you know, 800 meters, 600 meters, or 600 yards, whatever, which is interesting. They use yards instead of meters.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I
don't know.
I couldn't tell you that. I mean, what I found super interesting about this is from John McTiernan.
Yes.
Who also did Die Hard, which was an episode from longer that, like, when I look back, I hadn't realized how long ago it was we actually did Die Hard.
But this was John McCain.
John McCain, still here.
He's still there.
I was gonna make a new poster, Hunt for Red October with David Charvet. I thought that might have been could have been interesting casting. He was right there. If they couldn't get Alec Baldwin, David Charvet was the next call.
What's funny is I haven't seen this movie since, I don't know, 90s, I guess.
Did your parents like this movie? This struck me as a current family film.
I saw all of those movies that you referenced that were made in like the 80s and 90s. What was the first? Is this the first one of the time? Okay. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So what year was this? This was 80.
This was 90.
Okay. I certainly never read any of the books. I certainly did not know that there was like a through line between those movies. And I don't think my parents read the books either. They were just movies that we watched. Mm-hmm. Can I tell you that I probably didn't even notice they had the same character names in them?
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing about this movie. This movie, I feel like, is very showable to like a 10-year-old.
Sure. Well,
do you know what I mean?
Miss most of the stuff that's going on, but yeah.
But I mean, you can watch the sub and it's like action going on, and there's no nudity, there's no
absolutely
super crazy violence.
Yeah, these were these were the movies you could show your kids in the 90s.
Mainstream. Sure. So John McTiernan, so we were saying, directs Die Hard and then goes to this. What I think he did a great job of in these two movies is setting up John McCain, our good friend John McCain, McClane is in obviously tons more of Die Hard than Jack Ryan is in this. But he is able to establish kind of like an everyman quality in an extreme situation, but build the tension of that situation so we're not feeling like the character is superhuman. Mm-hmm. Like John McClane in the first.
I've done it to you.
Well,
I've done it.
But he's just a regular beat cop in the first Die Hard. He turns into like a cyborg in the later films, but that's what it. And Alec Baldwin, this isn't every person. And the construction and the way he does that character And it's interesting because there are some parallels, I think, between the two films, like how you see them at the beginning of the movies, you know, with the kids, or I'm going to see my wife, and they have big teddy bears and all these things, both of them. They do those little moments at the beginning before they put them in this kind of gauntlet. But it does enough that you feel invested in these guys and that it's not an MCU movie where it's going to be like Iron Man and none of this is going to be a challenge for him. Yeah. There are actual stakes being established for him.
Katie still takes Die Hard.
Yeah, that's fine.
I still love Die Hard.
Die Hard's a better movie than this, but I'm not saying that. But I think there's some parallels between how he crafted the movie.
Yeah, there's a lot in this movie that with an unskilled director just would not have worked, because there's no antagonist until the last 10 minutes of this movie.
Stellan skateboard.
Like, to the sub.
Stellan skateboard.
It's really just them trying to figure out how to communicate with each other and not screw this up, and whether they should trust each other for, 2-3 quarters of the movie. And then Stellan skateboard comes out of nowhere and wants to fight, and he's got a cook that wants to do stuff.
Remember me? I'm here.
Yeah. And so, like, when you think about that again, like to read it out loud or like think about it, it doesn't work. It's like, no,
Sounds
this
foolish.
movie is going to be dumb, but they pulled off really well, I think. And the direction, like, I don't know if I was looking too much into this, but they did make Stellan skateboard all of his scenes were sort of like that Dutch angle thing, and like they made him look like a little unhinged, and so claustrophobic compared to the American sub, which that was another thing. The American sub looked like the inside of a hospital. It was so bright and lit up, and then you go to the Russian sub, it was like, this is where we mine coal. Like, it was so dark.
Well, that's one of the things they did. They gave each one a color. I think the Dallas, the US sub was red. The October was blue. And then I can't remember what the other one was, because there was concern hopping from sub to sub, would that get confusing?
Yeah,
so they attempted to do a different light color for each one.
So at the moment when Sean Connery and Sam Neill go into, no, it wasn't Sam Neill. Who's the guy that he kills?
It was the political officer.
Peter Firth from the amazing show Spooks, aka
Excellent.
MI5, which our good friend Tess worked on.
Excellent. So tell me his name again.
Peter Firth.
Peter Firth and Sean Connery go into the cabin to chat. Up until that point, all the Russian has been in closed captions, right? Like, so we've had Russian being spoken. And so they go in there and they do like a soft dissolve. And then suddenly they're both speaking English.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I thought at that moment, I'm like, oh, that's really nice of the filmmakers. They did the Wayne's World dissolve and said, we're not going to make you read the closed captioning for the rest of the film. We're going to pretend that these people are speaking English. And that's what I thought was happening at first.
It is what happened.
No, I thought that they were, because then they said he's not really Russian.
No, and so that's exactly what happened.
That is exactly what
happened. No, that is exactly
no one else in the movie speaks Russian from that point forward.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, you're right. You're absolutely right. But then, when they went over to the American side and they were like, well, he's not really Russian, then I was like, oh, maybe he is all of a sudden just speaking English.
No, he was from, I forget where this...
Lithuania.
Yeah.
Yes. But they changed on the word Armageddon, and that was purposeful. Like, switch because he's reading the Bible and he says Armageddon, and that's when it switches over from Russian to English, which thank God. I did enjoy a little bit that they got the idea, okay, these are the Russians, but then made that choice. A lot of films wouldn't do that. They would just start with by the way, two things that happen with every Russian in a movie. They're always English actors playing Russians, speaking Russian with an English accent. And literally the soundtrack for every movie involving the Russians are the same Russian opera. It's always the same. No, watch it.
It's like a ballet or something, right?
Yeah, it's always the Bolshoi ballet. Or every film using a Russian will use.
You know who they could have used in this movie? Kristen Wiig playing the Russian woman on the Weekend
not Kristen
Update.
Wiig.
Oh no, it's not. It's
Kate McKinnon.
Yes. I would like to see her on the sub. They really needed some women in there.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. This was the 80s, so like there were no women on those subs.
No, there weren't. So, I mean, the one thing I would say about this is there's obviously, this is kind of like when we talked about Caddyshack and we're like, well, look, there's no representation. There's not. That is kind of what it was. And even when they filmed it, so this came out in 90, so they were filming it in 89 as the Berlin Wall is coming down. It was like almost an instantaneous historical film. You know, it was a Cold War film when the Cold War was coming to an end. You know, it's supposed to be 84. So in Reagan's America in 84 and in Russia, is that what these things would have been? Yeah, absolutely. I think that is limiting in terms of what they are. And the one thing I would say about Clancy's writing is, and this isn't one because it didn't fit in, he did always have his wife play a really pivotal role. And Ann Archer takes over the role when Harrison Ford takes it over. And she does play a bigger role in both of the other movies. So he did have female characters that were pretty strong and great, including in his later novels, some really awesome Secret Service were women, which was pretty cutting edge for the time that he wrote it. I appreciated
that this film made in 1990 had people of color in it, which was more than you could see in many movies up until 1990. And
you know, some of those characters, like Jonesy, becomes a big character in his other books.
So I didn't remember Alec Baldwin from this film. When we were talking about it, I was like, oh, Sean Connery and James Earl Jones. Like those are the people that I remember from this movie. I did not remember that Alec Baldwin was.
How could you forget that turtleneck sweater he's wearing?
Right, so people think...
Can I wear that?
It was aggressive.
I want one of those.
Aggressive.
I don't get the Alec Baldwin thing.
Oh, why people like him?
Yeah, I get him on 30 Rock. Like, I never enjoyed him until 30 Rock.
Yeah, agreed. And whatever. He's whatever to me.
I thought he was good in this role. I think he was what he needed to be. I think if I had to pick the Jack Ryans,
it's him.
It's him, I think. Yeah. Again, I do like John Krasinski's take on it on TV, but it's a wildly different. It's not really Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan in a lot of ways.
Because that's crazy. It's too
modern. Right. It's too modern. Like you need Jack Ryan of Tom Clancy was very much a Cold War
analyst
character,
right?
And to change that changes a lot of who he is. And I think Baldwin plays it really well. And I love Harrison Ford, unlike Jim, who doesn't like Harrison Ford movies other than Indiana Jones and Star Wars. And I kind of get it. Like when I was thinking about like those roles, it had to be about Harrison Ford. And as I'm watching Alec Baldwin's performance, it's definitely Alec Baldwin, those mannerisms and things. But this was young Alec Baldwin. So, but I did think it was more that was Jack Ryan. I wasn't thinking, okay, this is a Harrison Ford movie that just so happens to be using the title of a Tom Clancy book.
I just always feel like Harrison Ford, outside of those two movies, is playing like a watered down version of those two characters. Like it's never something unique in a new way that makes me go, oh, he's totally trying something different. I think maybe What Lies Beneath is the only one, which, and maybe I need to watch more, but as far as I remember, that's the one where he's sort of, a totally different kind of character.
Well, I mean Blade Runner, but I mean that's
Blade Runner's great. I forgot about that. Yeah,
but that's very early. That's like 80,
and so like for this movie, I love another thing that came to me is that how much of and it may be the name Jonesy that sort of like ticked me into it, but so much of like Scott Glenn and Jonesy reminded me of Tom Skerritt and like the crew in Alien. And like, probably how much of Alien was influenced by, military and naval, like the way things looked and sort of that feel. I don't know.
I also loved, in many ways, the camera work here. And like, this is like a difference between maybe like the cinematography of, let's say, Hell or High Water last week, which was more like beautiful. Like there were some great shots and stuff like this. To me, the camera work, and you hit on it, Jim, like if John McTiernan doesn't direct this, I think this has the potential to become the Da Vinci Code with Ron Howard.
Yes.
But legitimately, that's what I had in my mind. If you watch the Da Vinci Code, and I love the book, The Da Vinci Code, and Ron Howard directs a good movie, like it'll be enjoyable or something like that, but it's at points surface level. Like the Da Vinci Code movie is a long book, kind of like the Clancy-esque things, lots of moving pieces, lots of characters. But Ron Howard was so safe with it. It was just very much like static camera work, static performances. In this, John McTiernan takes all of these chances. There's constant motion in the camera. They use the camera in different ways, whether it's with Dutch angles or the way at some scenes they're making the submarine feel vast, but at other times they're making it feel claustrophobic. Mm-hmm. And Jan de Bont, who did Speed, which is probably his most famous movie, Jan de Bont.
Wait, one more time.
Can you also say Dutch angle again?
Yeah.
Dutch angle.
And Jan de Bont.
Jan
de Bont. Was the DP, but he directs Speed. Like the way the camera movement is utilized in this film is something we haven't seen necessarily a ton. We've talked about cinematography in terms of the picture and stuff. The camera tells a story here. Mm-hmm. And it has a lot to do because Jim's right. There's not a lot of action in this movie. This is almost a military procedural at points. And how do you make it feel? It didn't feel slow at all.
No.
And I think a lot of that was the constant motion of the camera, the editing, the choices that are made by the production crew behind this. And it makes a lot. It takes something where if you were very static and was just, we're going to show Sean Connery and we're going to have a static camera and we're not going to have a lot of motion and we're not going to have these edits that are cutting back and forth. This just turns in, it would be like a boring, one of those like History Channel, half documentary, half dramas they make, where it's like they have a scene, but then they cut to like a professor saying, well, this is what Hamilton.
This is where he kissed her.
Yes.
What if in the middle of that really tense scene with a torpedo coming straight at them, Sean Connery pulled a Yui and then said, and then I remembered my Charlemagne.
No, he said, and maybe goose-stopping morons like you
they spent
should try reading a book.
It's basically what he did, right?
Rather than burning them.
The umbrella through the geese.
I believe this was actually Connery's film right after Last Crusade, because this Last Crusade was 1989. They spent like over $20,000 on his hairpiece for this movie.
It's pretty impressive. He's got a strong hairline in this movie.
Yeah, he does, which he did not have in real life. Yeah. Even when he was Bond, by the way, they had to put he was bald all the way back to the Bond days. They had to put toupee. Now, by the way, interestingly enough, Alec Baldwin was not supposed to play Jack Ryan.
Okay.
The original Jack Ryan was supposed to be Harrison Ford.
Okay.
And he was too expensive.
Yeah.
And that would have been weird after Last Crusade.
And then they hired Alec Baldwin. The movie was the I think top 10, maybe number 11 box office film. And Alec Baldwin decided he was going to ask for a boatload of money to do Patriot Games. And the producer said to him, for that type of money, I could get Harrison Ford. And he said, well, I'm not budging. And then they went and got Harrison Ford for the next 2 months.
I think that was a huge mistake.
What movies did Alec Baldwin do after this? Like, I feel like I just don't think of him as a big star until
this kind of was what... No, but this is what was supposed to be his break, Katie. That's fair. I mean, he had done Beetlejuice.
Oh, Beetlejuice is so... But that is a movie where I don't even think of it as him because he's so good in it.
No, but that's the point. He was doing like those type of roles where he was support roles or secondary roles. This was a big box office hit. Then he starts doing things like the remake for The Getaway. He's in Prelude to a Kiss.
Yeah,
Glengarry Glen Ross. That's
he's very good in Glengarry.
He has the most famous soliloquy in the he's only in it for
I've never seen that
a little bit
5 minutes, I think.
Yeah, but it's the whole like ABC like Coffees for Closers. That's him.
Okay.
That whole speech.
Oh, that's a TV movie. That's interesting.
Yeah, but he's doing
Stanley
stuff.
And,
But
Streetcar.
Stella!
I can't picture it.
I don't remember.
The Edge. I remember that movie being people
Is that
liking.
the one he was in Malice with Nicole Kidman and Bill Pullman? Which I mean, he did some decent movies, but he was not the box office star I think they thought he was going to be. Do you know what he was? He was one of those guys, and we've talked about it before, where there's a difference between like a super movie star and these guys who just kind of float in and are the hot item for a while. Like, you know, we talked about how Michael B. Jordan has the potential to be like a superstar, like a movie star, like Tom Cruise. Like he could be around for 30, 40 years.
Yes.
Alec Baldwin's more like a Chris Pratt or a Taylor Kitsch, one of these guys who was in like 5 or 6 movies and everyone's like, this is going to be the next big Hollywood star.
Yeah.
And then kind of fades away. And Alec Baldwin's been able to go do TV and do all these other things. And he's famous and he's Alec Baldwin, but he's not Tom Cruise.
Yeah, but he was lucky that he was funny, because I think that's without 30 Rock, I think he's having a rough time. Because I think without 30 Rock and his appearances on Saturday Night Live, yeah, he doesn't resonate in today's world.
I feel like he turns into one of those guys, like maybe even Kevin Costner, right? He had a run of like 6 or 7 movies in a row where everyone's like, oh my God, he's the box office star. And then you get this lull, and
I don't know if he's Kevin Costner's level.
Kevin Costner's better.
Well, I think he had more success. Like,
that's fair.
Kevin Costner had a bunch of movies that were all
and he has
pretty
some
good.
Awesome movies. Yes, yeah. Fair. That's a fair point. When we're watching this, it again is kind of like Hell or High Water, and this was a fairly decently budgeted movie. I'm not saying this was a cheap movie, but it did make me long for movies that made you think a little bit, that had intelligent characters in it, that had real stakes in it, as opposed to, you know, just let's spend $200 million. Oh yeah, John Wick, Godzilla films, like those things where it's
honest to God. We were chatting about this in our text chat with the Pop Addled guys. I have no desire to revisit any of the MCU movies, maybe ever. I don't know.
What does MCU mean?
Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I always get the Marvel and the universe, and I'm like, what's this?
I mean, I would. The only reason I would revisit them at this point is if the girls wanted to watch them.
Which that's when I might want to do it,
and that would be fine.
Well, luckily, since we are all in the mood to have our thinking caps on when we are watching movies and have strong character-driven plot, next week we get to watch Best in Show.
Oh, we've canceled that. We're watching Weekend at Bernie's instead.
What?
No, we're not.
I'm kidding.
Oh my God. I was going to quit
next week,
right
we
now.
are watching Justice League.
No.
Get excited.
No.
But this was a fun one. It was one that did a good job of having tension. Probably one that has not been seen in a long time. Just a good,
doesn't need to be
solid
again
movie. Oh, I'll watch it again.
Katie's done with the submarine.
It is interesting. There was a run there for a while.
Yeah, U-571.
Yeah, there was a lot of submarine drama movies. Yeah. That was like, what was the
Crimson Tide?
Yeah, Crimson Tide, which is a good movie. Denzel and Gene Hackman. That might be worth a watch at some point. Yeah. But it was interesting. It was like when we talked about like the prep school movies, and it was around the same time, like that mid to early 90s. There was all those like prep school movies, and then there were also submarine movies.
Yeah, agreed.
Now, here's a question for you. Would you, when you look at, we've had this odd run of a little bit of early 90s movies recently. When you look at this movie or you look at like The Fugitive, which would you rather watch of these two? Would you rather
I
watch
go
this
Fugitive.
I go Red October.
Red October.
Yeah.
And then, all right. Yeah, it's interesting. Harrison Ford versus Alec Baldwin.
It's the same though. Like it's all about, for that question, I think it's all about how do you want to feel when you're watching the movie? And Katie and I typically want to feel totally different when we're watching a movie. Same thing happens with music. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. We know what we like.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We like Brian. Sort of.
We both agree on Brian. That's all. Yeah. That's it. And Ted Lasso.
We both agree how Brian makes us feel.
Brian makes us feel warm and squishy.
It's uncomfortable. It's very, very uncomfortable. I make myself feel uncomfortable.
I feel damp.
I feel damp right now.
It feels like Shape of Water in here damp.
Oh God!
That whole room in Shape of Water was very damp.
But interesting you say that.
What's the guy's name in Shape of Water?
The creature.
The creature.
Which the sea that let's not get back into Jim's weird movie fetish stuff. His weird fetish movies.
Where's your egg timer?
That he used to make us watch. So the beginning of this podcast was a
best picture.
I will watch Shape of Water over and over again.
That was the best picture.
Red October goes in the dustbin.
But you know what's interesting is they actually use the techniques in Shape of Water that they used in Red October to film the sub. None of the sub was underwater. That was the same process they did with Shape of Water because they can't.
Thank you, Red October, for that.
That's right. You got Shape of Water.
There you go.
And no creepy sex in Red October. All right. Watch Hunt for Red October.
Could have used a little creepy sex.
Yeah.
Well, hey.
I am sure those men were getting very lonely.
Who would you like to have seen? What scene would you like to have seen? Let's play this out.
No.
You're writing Red October cosplay?
Listen, Jock Ryan. Do you like to go fishing?
Yeah, they were going fishing together. I'll tell you that much.
Out the manhole.
It is time for Game of the Week. And this time, we are hopping in the Comm Majors time machine and going back to the lovely year 1990. Do we not have Huey Lewis? Where is the Huey Lewis?
We can't play it because they block us as soon as we play 10 seconds of it now. So we lose
Huey Lewis. Listen to Huey Lewis. Pause us. Listen to Huey Lewis. Come back. We'll just wait here for 2.5 minutes for you.
Katie's going rogue on this one, by the way. I want none of these movies. I want none of these TV shows. You guys can do all of that without me. I will meet you at the 3 songs. I'm going to sit right there.
I am just saying, these 1990, when I looked at it.
Oh, you're missing out.
You're missing out on some of this stuff. All right, so we're in the Comm Majors time machine. Perhaps I'll cut a demo of Back in Time, my own demo on my...
I can't wait to hear that.
On my keytar. I'll get my keyboard guitar. Jim, could you play a version of it at your Live Pale Reason
I
show?
cannot.
Then we could use it. All right, here we go.
I will not.
All right, so it's 1990. These are 3 of the biggest box office hits, believe it or not, of 1990. Number 1, Mr. Patrick Swayze in Ghost, a film that everyone who listens to Comm Majors knows how we feel about, Pretty Woman, or Home Alone. Which film would you be going to if you hopped in a time machine and went back to 1990 and got to go see something in a theater? Katie.
Right.
No, you just said you're out.
Well, I thought
she was being overly dramatic.
I will go and see Ghost because you know that I love Patrick Swayze and I love Sexy Time, so I'm in.
Yeah, I was surprised you wouldn't at least just be. You're not. We're not a Ghost fan. I feel like
I've only seen it once.
Yeah,
really,
it's a good movie. Yeah. It's really good.
Yeah.
I think it is.
That one guy, he's the bad guy from the beginning because he's such a
Tony Goldwyn.
He's a hate the face. Yes. As soon as you see his face, you're like, that bad guy. Yeah, no good. He's like Johnny from Karate Kid.
I only remember the 3.
Anyway.
All right,
I'm going Home Alone. The in-theater experience, seeing Home Alone for the first time. I think, honestly, Home Alone is the best movie on that list. It's the most inventive, interesting movie.
Yeah.
I would pick Home Alone as well. I remember seeing it, going to see it in the theater, thought it was great. And I think that it's probably a few years ago I watched it because
it's hilarious.
Claire wanted to see it. She enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I thought it stands the test of time.
The moment he puts that tarantula on what's his name's face,
that's what you had to go for.
And he the scream that
Joe Pesci.
No, it's Daniel Stern, right? Daniel Stern.
Yes, Daniel Stern gets that.
The moment he screams, I think Eva laughed for like 20 minutes straight. So like there is something about that movie that is just awesome. I love that movie.
It is. Do you know what it's like? Remember we had the discussion a couple of weeks ago. It's like one of those movies. If it's on, you're willing to wait and you'll watch it because you want to get to the end. Yeah. So you'll sit there and be like, "Oh, it's on regular TV. I'll sit here for a while because I want to get to the tarantula. I want to get to the paint cans flying down. I want to get to all that stuff." It is a good movie, and it is worth doing. All right, let's go to TV. Now, for TV, we had been in and around this time period in the time machine before, so I decided to pick shows that were on the Fox network, because in 1990, the Fox network is new to the scene. I think it's like 88 or 89 it comes, and these are the three big shows that allow Fox as a network to actually challenge the original three. Nobody had been able to challenge CBS, ABC, or NBC up to this point. And Fox comes out with what is surprising when we think of Fox today as some pretty edgy, cutting edge, kind of almost shocking things, pushing the envelope in ways that I don't think we would associate it with the modern context. But these are the three big shows for them in 1990. Married with Children, The Simpsons, which actually premiered 89/90. So this is like first year Simpsons coming off the Tracy Ullman show, or In Living Color. Who wants to go first?
I was not allowed to watch any of these shows.
I can't imagine you were allowed to watch any of this.
The whole station of Fox was banned in my house. But I've always been intrigued by The Simpsons, and I feel like maybe I'll just start with season 1.
Yeah, you know what's funny is I think the Married with Children is basically like an updated
All in the Family.
All in the Family.
Yes.
So I crossed that off. It's great, but I crossed it off. The Simpsons is totally an amazing show and probably the best show in the list. But it actually doesn't really get its legs for another 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, first year Simpson was crude.
But in Living Color, I don't think it was around for very long. It was really a snapshot, and it was basically an SNL with people of color.
Yes.
And granted, there is stuff there that does not age well at all. But that, I think, in the long term of like comedy and seeing people of color in prime time does a lot. Granted, the Cosby Show was probably right up there in a bigger way, but In Living Color was at least for me, was looking at people of color not having to pretend to be white.
Well, it was cutting edge.
Right.
Which, what's interesting is that network at that time was willing to take.
Think about the Fly Girls, first of all. The Fly Girls, which even now when I watch like the video for, the girls will watch the video for Taylor Swift, Shake It Off. There's like, in that video, there's like different people, different styles of dance done over and over again. And there's one that is totally based on like the Fly Girl, like hip hop dancing.
Absolutely.
And even now I'm like, ooh, like what are they wearing? And like to imagine that they were doing that on prime time in 1990.
It was 8 o'clock.
It was J-Lo and like, yeah. And I think some of the skits that they did were so funny. Like it was the Chappelle Show of the 90s.
Yes.
Like it was that funny. Yeah, granted, we probably wouldn't be laughing as much at the homophobic characters and things like that. No. But there's other stuff like Fire Marshal Bill, which is hilarious. Jim Carrey gets his start on In Living Color because he said no one else would give him a shot. You have Damon Wayans doing things like Homie the Clown or this old box where he's a bum, like doing home improvements on his box. Totally inappropriate, right? But unlike anything else that we saw at that time.
Well, it's also reflective of societies at points, right? So, and that changes over time, and maybe that pushed boundaries to people to realize some of that stuff shouldn't be joked about in that way. But I watched...
But The Simpsons is the same way, by the way.
Yeah, that's very fair.
Yeah.
I would, having Married with Children, I think I might pick, because that was the one that I wasn't necessarily always allowed to watch. do you know what I mean by that? Like, so we would have been like 11 or 12. The Simpsons you could get away with because it was a cartoon. And I agree with Jim. Simpsons took a couple of years to really hit its stride. I remember The Simpsons used to be on Thursday night and challenged Cosby.
Yeah.
And it was a huge deal when it surpassed
Cosby won every week in our house.
I still remember a kid on my street was never allowed to watch The Simpsons because after like the first couple episodes, I think there was a scene where Bart like stood up on a rock and like peed, and this kid did that somewhere, and his parents were like, "You're never watching The Simpsons."
Bart Simpson
again.
was blamed for so many choices.
Oh my god! Well,
and it's funny though because that is the change that the show made that made it iconic rather than just this one thing. It shifted from Bart to Homer. And once it did that, the Michael Scottness of Homer took over, and it went crazy.
And the demographic changed.
Right.
It wasn't a show. It wasn't aiming for kids anymore.
Right. And it could get political. It could get very satire.
It could be
more intellectual.
Cultural satire.
Right. And without The Simpsons, we don't get South Park. We don't get Family Guy. We don't get any of
that stuff.
I'd like to explore it.
It's a lot.
It's on Disney Plus.
There's 600 seasons.
It's all on Disney Plus.
But when Conan was writing for it, I think those are the strong years.
Do you know you can watch just the Halloween episodes on Disney Plus right now? They pulled all the Halloween ones out.
I would like that.
Halloween.
I showed the.
But did they edit them? Because they've edited some of the other stuff.
Crow.
I think.
I don't know if they did. I think
Katie just said she's the English major.
Yeah.
What did I just
We're the comm majors. She just said, "I love when they do the crow."
I show my.
All I could think about was
I was like, what?
Was like
what
Brandon.
Yeah, that's
the
where
guy
I went.
Brandon.
Do you mean
Brandon Lee.
the Raven? Even I know.
Exactly what it is, Brian. My brain is not working. I need to go to sleep.
So I'll pick Married with Children, though I watched both the other two shows. All right, and finally, music. These are all top 10.
This isn't even
Billboard
close.
songs. I'm just telling
Come at me.
I will come at you because
Come at me.
one of these is one of the greatest vocal performances ever.
Fine.
And the other two are nice pop songs.
I will say this: 2 out of the 3 of these songs I have on my iPad.
All right.
And you're probably two.
I feel you.
Yeah.
I understand.
Okay.
All right. Say the things, Brian. Go.
The number one song that year was "Hold On" by Wilson Phillips. "Nothing Compares to You" by Sinead O'Connor, or "Vogue" by Madonna. What does everybody want to listen to?
I agree, James. Though you know my love for Wilson Phillips runs deep, and I would like you to bury me / cremate me with.
How do you want to feel when you listen to the song?
You are right.
Totally
Sinead
different.
O'Connor, "Nothing Compares to You" is like a full body experience.
Prince written song.
It's incredible. So yes,
and this might be the year.
That.
Was this the year? Did she do this on SNL? Is this when she ripped up the picture of the Pope?
Yes, and then Chris Christopherson said, "Don't let the bastards get you down." The famous thing, like they had him in SNL. He got in trouble for that.
Well, whatever.
She should have idea what was going on.
She, we all should have known what was going on back then.
Yes.
But anyway, that vocal performance on that song, I just can't pick anything else. Vogue is like Madonna's version of "We Didn't Start the Fire," and it's whatever. It's not even top
memorable.
20 of her songs.
It's a memorable song.
Maybe it is top 20. Maybe it is.
I don't think it's. I don't think that's a good song. I don't think Vogue's a good. I don't own that, Jim. You probably thought I owned Vogue.
I know it's the other two. I figured after I really thought about it.
Sinead O'Connor would be my choice.
Yeah.
Even though I do love me some Wilson Phillips.
Love Wilson Phillips.
If you haven't experienced their Christmas album, you are escaping extreme torture.
It gets heavy rotation in our house at Christmas.
I would kind of like that.
I'm sure Aileen would love it.
Ooh, hey, Santa.
No, I would like
Santa,
it more.
Santa.
Oh, I know that song. That's a good song.
It is
my
not
favorite
a good
Christmas. It's a great song.
My
favorite Christmas song is "All I Want for Christmas Is You."
It makes me want to be on the naughty list for punching.
Excellent.
That's like we should do one of those. Remember when they used to have that show where they had to switch spouses for just a week? Katie and I could listen to the Christmas music.
Brian, at my yoga class last night, the playlist was Yacht Rock. You would have loved it. You would have loved it.
Check out my Spotify playlist.
Yacht Rock is exactly how I do not want to feel when listening to music. But I do understand why so many people want that in their music.
Come on. There's some great stuff in that.
You know what, Jim? Hold on for one more day.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say. All right, time for 5 questions.
Sailing it's sailing, right? Christopher Cross has to be the one that is responsible for this whole genre, right? The genre gets its name from him.
Gets it from him. And
I don't hate him.
Great.
I don't hate him.
It wasn't even that good. There's so much better Yacht Rock than Christopher Cross.
Sailing's a great song.
I don't care for him.
Yes, it is. But
and he was actually, I think, a pretty good guitar player.
Yeah.
But anyway.
All right. 5 question time. Here we go.
Okay.
You want answers?
I do.
You want answers?
I do.
I want the truth.
What makes a man, Mr. Lebowski?
Pair of testicles, sir.
Would you? Why?
All right, time for 5 questions. I will be answering this week, and Katie's asking.
I wrote them. I did.
Yes.
I did.
Katie
I wrote
is
these.
asking.
All right,
Great
Brian.
5 questions.
Thumbs up or thumbs down on submarines?
Like the sandwich?
Great question. I was thinking.
What
could
the
go
fuck
either.
is a submarine sandwich?
I actually taught my students this week. They did not know that that's where the term sub comes from.
Also, that's not what it's fucking called.
I also learned
it is.
that a hoagie began as something called a hoggy because it was sold on Hog Island in Philadelphia.
Yep.
There is less than 0 chance that I would ever get into an actual submarine.
Same.
Yeah, when you think about just being enclosed by water, that's terrifying. Now, I've done the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea thing at Disney World where you do go underwater for a minute.
That's not around anymore, right?
No, they took
rid
it
of
out.
that.
And even that, I was like, no, I don't like this. I don't love it. Now, just remember, in this scenario, there's also a nuclear reactor strapped to your ass.
Nope.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
To be clear, I don't like the ocean. We've established this long ago. So the idea of living in it, one of the reasons I don't like going in the water is because I believe that is a fish's home. And I feel like I'm violating their space.
It's like the only worst place to go would be space, right?
Mm-hmm.
I might pick space over the ocean.
I think I would.
Pick space?
I think I would go to space. Just the whole idea of like,
did you ever see Gravity?
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not going out there. No.
To be clear, I'm not doing either.
No,
it's difficult for me to go to I don't go to a hotel that doesn't have high-speed internet. So the idea of going to any of these other
I think they have high-speed internet in both of these places.
Questionable.
All
right. Would you rather? Would you rather fly in a helicopter over the ocean in a storm or visit a nuclear power plant under the ocean, as previously referenced?
Lots of people die in helicopters.
Yeah, helicopters are not good.
So I think I would actually go to an underwater nuclear power plant because I feel like then I would be in some kind of a dream or a mission or
where such a thing exists.
Where such a things exist, or I would be like watching a Mission Impossible movie, so I would be okay.
Sounds good. All right, fill in the blank. If I could learn any language as my second language, it would be
Mandarin. so that this podcast could go to China.
I would love to just hear Brian speaking Mandarin.
We would.
What offensive things would he be able to spew?
Look up on Google Translator, comm majors in Mandarin.
We would be huge in China. I mean,
Stranger Things have gone viral in China.
We're big in Poland.
Literally viral.
Not.
We are big in Poland.
We are not.
China
Two
could.
people.
Two is more than one. We could be huge in that country. I think
we could be huge.
We could probably get through some of the filters. If you listen to last week's episode, we were talking about the benefits of striking against a capitalistic, oppressive, large banking system. True. We could go right in there and have literally tens of people in China listening to us if the internet wasn't restricted.
All right.
I'm just saying.
Question number 4. Favorite. Going along with this idea of languages, what is your favorite accent? This film had a few good ones.
Yes, they did. Maybe like a New Zealand accent.
Oh, New Zealand's good.
I would also, for a short term, like to have a Cockney accent from like a Charles Dickens novel.
What are you doing, You're having to bang it in a mash.
I kind of want to sound like Noel Gallagher from Oasis.
Oh, nice. I'm watching Normal People right now on Hulu, and the Irish accents are everything for me.
Periwinkle Blue.
Oh my gosh.
Or, you know what? Comes to mind, Brad Pitt's accent.
Yeah, Periwinkle Blue.
Yeah,
but nobody would ever understand what you're saying.
That works for me. Probably better for me.
And a pair of them shoes.
It's actually pretty spot on.
Mama.
Yeah, probably would help me more.
Tommy, what do you have that gun for? The Germans.
The Germans.
German.
Question number 5, deep thoughts. What will retirement look like for you? Sean Connery is very excited about fishing. What's Brian Costello excited about?
Well, I could tell you what I'm not going to do. Fish. Never fished once in my life.
Aforereferenced water.
Yeah, never fished.
That's like
Wouldn't
pulling
go to a lake.
That's like pulling a person out of their home and drowning them.
I am not a human trafficker, so I would not steal someone from their home and then exploit them. Probably. I don't know. I haven't thought about it because I don't think I would do well in retirement. Is my guess.
Yep.
You're going to be a coach. You're going to be coaching something.
You're going to be a coach, and you are going to watch all of the movies you have not gotten to yet.
4.
Yes, 4.
Books, movies.
Yeah,
basketball.
Probably those things. If the school year keeps going the way that it's going, I might want to retire. Early retirement.
Seems like a good time for a sabbatical.
Might be a great time. And that's 5 questions.
All right.
We have breaking news. Next week, we have a very, 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 very very, very special guest. Erin Powers will maybe be joining us, I don't know, for what is a tremendous film, as Katie teased earlier. Best in Show.
Can't wait. Can't wait. Catherine O'Hara, Eugene Levy, united again for the first time. For the 4th time.
Is Chris Elliott in that? I can't remember. It's been so long.
I don't think
since
he
I've
is.
seen it.
No.
Is he not in that one?
I don't think he is.
Stifler's mom is in it.
Parker Posey's in it.
Yeah.
Doug
Oh my
Kern is
God.
in it.
Yes. Parker Posey and I forget her husband's name.
I forget her husband.
But they're the ones that are like, yeah, we met by looking at each other in Starbucks across the street.
The Weimaraner family.
Yeah. You were
the braces.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
We were both reading J. Crew catalogs.
Can't wait.
I am very excited for this. Aileen has never seen.
Oh, she's gonna love this
film.
What is happening?
She is gonna love this movie.
I know. I'm nervous. What if she doesn't like it?
Oh, it's not possible.
It's like right up her alley.
Okay.
I might be sleeping on your couch in Philadelphia if she doesn't like it. You might tell Scout to move over.
I don't know what to do.
Move over, Scout. Remember to like, share, subscribe, review.
And PSA, vote, friends. It's that time. Make your voting plan.
Yeah.
Figure it out. Be specific. Know how you're getting your vote in.
Unless you're voting for Trump, then don't vote.
Oh, well, there you go.
And
if you're waiting in a long voting line because voting access is not equal for all, listen to Comm Majors.
Call us. We'll
listen
find
to us.
you some people.
So I did get the Mandarin translation for communication majors, but it's basically just a bunch of characters. So I
thought it would say it for you.
Oh.
Could you call Adrian and have her translate it for us?
Hold on.
传播专业
Excellent.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye.